Exciting football stretch. 55 days of action. Overview. Starting Thursday, October 3rd, we embark on an incredible 55-day stretch featuring college and NFL games. This period guarantees at least one game from the FBS level or the NFL every day until November 27th. Marking an unprecedented football run. Here are the 5 NFL and 5 college matchups we're most excited about during this stretch. Top 5 NFL matchups. Buffalo Bills at New York Jets, October 14th. Significance. A crucial game for both teams, if the Jets want to remain competitive in the AFC East. A victory here is essential. Storyline. Will the Jets bounce back after recent struggles? The potential for headline-grabbing drama is high. Detroit Lions at Minnesota Vikings, October 20th. Significance. This matchup could have major implications for the NFC North standings. Storyline. With the Vikings' strong start, this game could determine who leads the division moving forward. Kansas City Chiefs at San Francisco 49ers, October 20th. Significance. A Super Bowl rematch that could be a preview of this year's championship. Storyline. Despite injuries, both teams remain strong contenders. Expect high stakes and intense competition. Washington Commanders at Philadelphia Eagles, November 14th. Significance. A potential NFC East title decider as both teams vie for playoff positioning. Storyline. The rise of Jayden Daniels as the Commanders' QB could make this matchup even more intriguing. Houston Texans at Dallas Cowboys, November 18th. Significance. An important Texas rivalry that could impact playoff hopes. Storyline. Will the Cowboys find their rhythm in time to make a playoff push? Top 5 college football matchups. Ohio State at Oregon, October 12th. Significance. A major test for both teams that could shape the playoff picture. Storyline. Can Oregon handle Ohio State's potent offense? Expect fireworks on both sides. Georgia at Texas, October 19th. Significance. This SEC showdown could have serious playoff implications. Storyline. The clash between QBs Quinn Ewers and Carson Beck adds a Heisman narrative to the game. Alabama at Tennessee, October 19th. Significance. A historic rivalry game that promises high stakes. Storyline. Tennessee aims for back-to-back wins over Alabama, a feat they haven't achieved in years. Boise State at UNLV, October 25th. Significance. A pivotal game in the Mountain West Conference that could determine playoff aspirations. Storyline. Watch for Heisman contender R.B. Ashton Jeanty and how he performs against UNLV's defense. Ohio State at Penn State, November 2nd. Significance. A matchup that could eliminate the loser from Big Ten title contention. Storyline. Both teams are likely to be ranked, making this a must-watch for playoff implications. Conclusion. This 55-day stretch is a dream for football fans, packed with high-stakes matchups in both college and NFL. Mark your calendars and get ready for an unforgettable season of football action. Fantasy Football Week 5. Players to fade. As we dive into Week 5, here are 5 players in one entire position group that might not be worth the risk based on their matchups and current performance trends. Quarterback. Sam Darnold, Minnesota Vikings. Current status. Darnold has surprisingly excelled this season, ranking as QB4 with 11 TDs. Matchup. He faces the Jets, whose defense allows the second lowest EPA per dropback and has limited efficient quarterbacks this season. Recommendation. While he hasn't finished lower than QB14, consider alternatives like Joe Flacco or Trevor Lawrence, especially with bye weeks in play. Running backs. Breece Hall, New York Jets. Current stats. Hall has been disappointing with a 3.1 YPC and the second highest stuff rate among RBs. Matchup. Facing the Vikings, who have a tough rush defense, makes it unlikely for Hall to break out this week. Recommendation. He's tough to bench outright, but temper expectations and consider riskier flex options. Zach Moss, Cincinnati Bengals. Current stats. Moss has been solid but is sharing the workload, and the Bengals' offensive line took a hit with Trent Brown's injury. Matchup. The Ravens' defense is stingy, allowing just 3.0 YPC and few fantasy points to RBs. Recommendation. He's a flex play, but consider him an RB3 in this difficult matchup. Wide receivers. Jordan Addison, Minnesota Vikings. Current status. Addison had a strong week 4, but his volume was limited with a low target rate. Matchup. The Jets provide a challenging environment, especially with the potential focus on Justin Jefferson. Recommendation. He might not replicate last week's success, so approach with caution in your flex spot. Jacoby Myers, Las Vegas Raiders. Current status. With Devontae Adams likely out, Myers would typically be a target-heavy option. Matchup. He'll likely be shadowed by Pat Surtain too, one of the best cornerbacks in the league, making it tough for him to produce. Recommendation. Unless desperate, Myers should be avoided this week. Position to fade. Tight ends. Current landscape. This season has seen an unpredictable tight end landscape with no clear standout option. Recommendation. Avoid any analyst's lock at tight end this week. It's been too volatile, and you might be better off streaming based on matchups. Conclusion. Consider these players carefully in your lineups this week. While they might have the potential to surprise, the matchups and recent performances suggest that they carry significant risk. Adjust your rosters accordingly and look for safer alternatives where possible. Fantasy Football Week 5 matchups to exploit. Young WRs and RBs to start. Here are some promising matchups for Week 5, featuring young wide receivers and running backs poised to make an impact. Wide receivers. Rome Odunze vs. Carr. Last week, 1 catch for 10 yards. Matchup. Facing the Panthers, who ranked 31st in pass rush. With Caleb Williams likely to have time to throw, Odunze should capitalize on Carolina's defense, allowing the 6th most passing yards per play. Recommendation. Start him confidently this week. Brian Thomas Jr. vs. Ind. Current standing. 12th in efficiency among rookies. Performance. At least 10 fantasy points in 3 of 4 games. Despite Trevor Lawrence's struggles, Thomas has emerged as a reliable target. Matchup. The Colts have allowed opposing number 1 outside receivers to average 100.5 yards per game. Recommendation. Start him against a vulnerable Colts defense. Dontavion Wicks vs. Lar. Roll. Expanded opportunity with Christian Watson out. Last week, led the Packers with 13 targets and scored 2 touchdowns. Matchup. The Rams allow the most passing yards per play, with multiple receivers hitting 130-plus yards against them. Recommendation. Start Wicks with confidence. Josh Downs vs. Jax. Last week, 9 targets, 8 catches, 82 yards, 1 TD. Trend. Leading target share in both games this season. Matchup. Jaguars rank among the worst in passing defense, having recently given up 345 yards and 2 TDs. Recommendation. Start Downs regardless of who's at quarterback. Running backs. Najee Harris vs. Dahl. Last week, 19 rushing yards on 13 carries, limited by offensive line issues. Usage. Averaging 20 opportunities per game. Matchup. The Cowboys allow the 2nd highest EPA per rush attempt. Recommendation. Start Harris, especially if he gets more carries with injuries impacting his teammates. Jerome Ford vs. Was. Last week, 17 touches for 85 yards. Usage. Played 77% of snaps and handled 71% of carries. Also ranks 3rd in RB targets. Matchup. Commanders allow the 2nd most rushing yards per play. Recommendation. Start Ford, who's been solid and has a favorable matchup. Conclusion. These players are primed for strong performances in Week 5 based on their matchups and recent trends. Consider them valuable additions to your starting lineup as you navigate the challenges of bye weeks. Giants injury updates ahead of Week 5 vs. Seahawks. As the Giants prepare for their matchup against the Seahawks, here are the latest injury notes affecting the team. Malik Nabers, WR. Status. In concussion protocol. Update. Nabers suffered a concussion in the 4th quarter against the Cowboys. While he is reportedly making progress, he has not returned to practice. With just 1 day left before the game, his availability for Sunday remains uncertain. If Nabers can't play, expect Jalen Hyatt to see an increase in his workload, though he has yet to record a catch this season. Devin Singletary, RB. Status. Groin injury. Update. Singletary missed practice on Wednesday and worked on the side on Thursday. Head coach Brian Daboll mentioned that he doesn't believe the injury is long-term, but his status for the game is still unclear. Drew Phillips, CB. Status: returned to practice. Update: Phillips, who has been sidelined with a calf injury, returned to practice on Thursday. He had a strong performance in Week 2, making 12 tackles against the Commanders, so his return could bolster the Giants' secondary. Adoree Jackson, CB. Status: returned to practice. Update: Jackson also returned on Thursday after dealing with a calf issue. His presence in the lineup would be a significant boost for the secondary, which has been thin in recent weeks. Conclusion: the Giants face a crucial game against the Seahawks, and their injury situation could play a big role in the outcome. Keep an eye on practice reports leading up to the game to see if Neighbors and Singletary can make it back in time, and how the return of Phillips and Jackson will strengthen the defense. Fantasy football sleepers for Week 5. With Week 4 in the rearview mirror and some solid performances from last week's sleeper picks, let's dive into some backup running backs and other potential fantasy gems to target this week. Tight end: Tucker Kraft, Packers. Rostered: 46%. Matchup: Rams. Analysis: Kraft had a breakout game in Week 4 with 6 receptions for 53 yards and a touchdown. With Christian Watson sidelined, he's becoming a more integral part of the offense. The Rams have struggled against tight ends, making Kraft a solid streaming option. Running back: Trey Sermon, Colts. Rostered: 31%. Matchup: Jaguars. Analysis: with Jonathan Taylor's ankle injury potentially sidelining him, Sermon could see significant snaps. He has averaged 4.3 yards per carry throughout his career and faces a favorable matchup against a Jaguars defense that struggles against the run. Running back: Alexander Mattison, Raiders. Rostered: 37%. Matchup: Broncos. Analysis: despite a challenging matchup, Mattison is likely to see increased volume as the main back for the Raiders. With Zamir White's struggles, Mattison's opportunity could translate to fantasy points. Wide receiver: Tutu Atwell, Rams. Rostered: 13%. Matchup: Packers. Analysis: with key wideouts out for the Rams, Atwell has stepped up, posting big yardage in recent games. The Packers' secondary has been vulnerable, setting up Atwell for a potentially strong performance. Wide receiver: Jordan Whittington, Chiefs. Rostered: 7%. Matchup: Packers. Analysis: Whittington has been emerging as a reliable target, evidenced by his recent 6-catch game. With the Packers struggling against wide receivers, he could be a sneaky play this week. Quarterback: Andy Dalton, Panthers. Rostered: 15%. Matchup: Bears. Analysis: Dalton offers a solid streaming option against the Bears, who have been vulnerable defensively. He has a favorable schedule, with upcoming matchups that could yield solid fantasy numbers. Wide receiver: Trey Tucker, Raiders. Rostered: 14%. Matchup: Broncos. Analysis: with Devontae Adams potentially out, Tucker's role in the Raiders' offense could grow. He's been scoring touchdowns recently and has a solid snap share, making him a worthwhile addition. Tight end: Cade Otton, Buccaneers. Rostered: 29%. Matchup: Falcons. Analysis: Otton has seen increasing usage, catching 13 passes over the last 2 weeks. The Falcons are among the easier matchups for tight ends, so he could provide decent value. Running back: Antonio Gibson, Commanders. Rostered: 26%. Matchup: Dolphins. Analysis: Gibson has been quietly accumulating touches and could see more if Ramondre Stevenson's struggles continue. The Dolphins have allowed plenty of points to running backs, making Gibson a potential flex play. Final thoughts: these sleepers offer a blend of opportunity and favorable matchups that could lead to significant fantasy production. Keep an eye on injury reports and snap counts as the week progresses, and adjust your lineup accordingly. Good luck. NFL investigation: fan incident with Chase Brown ruled accidental. The NFL has concluded its investigation into an incident involving Cincinnati Bengals running back Chase Brown, who was accidentally doused with a drink by a fan following the Bengals' victory over the Carolina Panthers. The league determined that the drink was spilled unintentionally as fans tried to catch gloves that Brown tossed into the crowd. Incident overview. The occurrence took place after the Bengals' 34-24 win on Sunday. Brown was walking into the tunnel when the drink incident happened, leading to viral footage of the event. NFL spokesman Brian McCarthy confirmed the findings, stating that the spill was accidental. Potential consequences. Had the NFL found the spill to be intentional, it could have resulted in severe penalties for the fan, including a potential lifetime ban from the stadium. Chase Brown's response. Brown, who had an impressive game with 80 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, expressed relief that the incident was not malicious. He mentioned his preference for it being a Bengals fan and highlighted that he's grateful they were able to catch the gloves. Future precautions. In light of the incident, Brown indicated that he might reconsider tossing items into the stands to prevent future occurrences. "Maybe I got to hand it up now," he said, hinting at a more cautious approach in the future. This light-hearted moment, following a successful game, underscores the sometimes chaotic yet passionate atmosphere of NFL games, where fan interaction can lead to unexpected moments.